Hey, it's April with Homesteading in the City, and today I want to take you through my backyard while we look at some edible weeds. So these are not things that I intentionally planted, but as we forage the backyard, we're going to find that there are still some other things that grow naturally that we can eat and consume. And also, in case you didn't know, I got a cat. She adopted me, and so she's decided she wants to be a part of this video and has just laid down where I had the camera. So this is Cleo, and Cleo is very sweet. She showed up one day and is now a part of the family. So we're gonna try to film around Cleo. Cleo, you like to be where the action is, don't you? She's about to knock this over. Alright, look. You can't knock the stuff over. You can't. Be careful. Be careful. You want nothing to do with me until I start doing something. Okay? You can't see her, but she's walking all around here. Okay. One book before we get started that I want to recommend is The Complete Guide to Edible Plants by the Department of the Army. And it lists several edible plants that you can find out in the wild, but some of the ones that we're going to look at aren't even in this book. But what I like about it is it gives some advice on how to identify different plants, and also how to see if something's edible, and how to test out those plants if you're not sure, so that you don't eat something and kill yourself or get very, very sick. But it has some great tips and advice, and so I recommend, if you're interested in foraging, get this book or a book like it to help you out. Because if you're not sure about a plant, don't eat it. But there are some ways that you can test it out to make sure you're not allergic to it, to make sure it's not poisonous. And also the internet is just a treasure trove of information, but make sure you work through that information and to make sure that you are very much accurate, because if you don't know what you're doing, it can be very harmful. So let me just do that disclaimer, and now let's go look at some of the weeds that are in my yard that we can also eat. First, we're going to check out some of the plants that are in my earth box. These are some that just started growing randomly. I did not plant them, but the earth box is such a nice place that everything loves to grow in it. But the first plant we're going to look at is Bittercress. Actually. So we're going to look at this Bittercress here. And it has these little bumpy leaves. Well, not bumpy, but they're round leaves, and it's part of the cress family. And so what this is good for is little salad toppings. It's not going to give you tons and tons of sustenance, but if you're looking for something to add into your salads, maybe purchase less lettuce, or even make it like a cute topping on an hors d'oeuvre that's edible. This cress is good for that. Now, it doesn't have a strong taste to it. You're not going to be like, oh, this is just the most amazing thing. But it's something that grows that we can eat. And so if we get into some dire circumstances, it's helpful to have. The next plant we have is one called Woodland lettuce. And this is one that's started randomly growing in the earth box as well. It's a common weed here in South Carolina. You can see it along roadsides and all this, but woodland lettuce is actually edible. You can boil it, or you can put it in salads. You want to make sure you identify it properly. My plant identifier just called it woodland lettuce or Florida lettuce. It's supposed to be fine. But then there is another strain of it that you can eat, but it also works as a laxative. And so I am not even positive which is which. I kind of feel like this might be the laxative one. So before eating a lot of this, I'm going to make sure I clear out a day on my calendar where I don't have to be anywhere or see anyone. Also, this little milky property here is said to also be pain relief. There from what I've read, there are some a small concentration of opioids in here, but you would have to eat a lot of it before you got those effects. But they have there's also little hairs on these leaves, so you don't want to really, the ones that are really older, that are hairier, you probably, if you are going to eat those, boil them before eating. But yeah, so this one, woodland lettuce, it grows abundantly where we are here in South Carolina, and I have eaten like little bits of this. It hasn't killed me or given me terrible stomach pains, but it's something that can fill out your salads if you would like, or you could saute them, eat them with some eggs, anything like that, give a little bit of extra nutrients. Now we're coming back to a part of the yard that I really need to get cleaned up. I have this fence falling over because there's just been so much overgrowth. And so you'll see all of these plants and vines that are just taking over. I just cut them back. I don't know how long, like not too long ago. But I want to show you one of my favorite ones to forage, and it is Greenbriar. So Greenbriar, the tips of these are edible, and they're kind of like asparagus. You have these young, tender tips. You can cut these, saute them, put them with some butter, make them in a frittata, but they're pretty good, and yes, asparagus alike. But the thing to make sure you don't get your Greenbriar confused with is this one right here. It has many names. I think this is wisteria, so whenever it does flower, it does have some pretty purple flowers, but it's also called Stairway to Heaven plant or Stairway to Hell. Different people call it different things, but it is poisonous. So when you see these vines growing, make sure if you're going to harvest your Greenbriar that it is coming from a vine with thorns on it. So you do want to have the briar aspect of it, and that it has these types of leaves, these big leaves, big round leaves, instead of multiple leaves coming off. But these guys do grow together a lot of times. There's a kitty that's joined us right there, in case you were curious. And you just want to make sure that you are getting the right thing. But look for the briars that are on it, but I'm probably going to harvest some of those and saute them today. So thanks for going on the backyard forage with me. We will look at some other plants later, and I'm going to work up some videos where I show you how to eat some of the things that we've looked at and more. But there are edible plants all around us, plants that can heal us, plants that can alleviate pain, all kinds of things that just grow in the wild. And so I feel like this is something that's important for us to know, because you never know when you're going to need those plant identification skills. So look around your backyard, see what's growing, see what's growing on the roads, on the nature paths that you walk. You'll be surprised at what abundance there is out in the wild.